All right. Oh, hey, we are live and I'm cleaning my glasses. What's up, wrestling fans?
Two Bros Wrestling Show on the air live, and Doug is
I have visibility now, I think. There's a reflection of the ring light occasionally in my eyes. But yes, I have visibility. We got a Doug, we got a Kevin, we had a pay-per-view. Oh, we had a premium live event last night that we're going to talk about tonight, Kevin.
we are Royal Rumble is the main event topic for tonight. So whether you watched last night or whether or not if you don't have Peacock and or just missed it and are wondering if you should, we're doing wall-to-wall coverage on our main event. So we have a non-spoiler review, and then we'll get right into the details of who won what. And if you watched, definitely stay tuned for that and let us know what you thought, because as always, the Royal Rumble was extremely eventful, and last night was no different. But Doug, before we do that,
Did Vince McMahon do something wacky again this week?
well, actually, I'm happy to say that not so much Vince this week, but not that we're without some Vince news. I'll start, though, with sort of follow up on the big news from last week, and that is just to let everyone know that, as I think, Doug, you did the heavy lifting last week on this one, but you let the good folks at home know that Jay Briscoe's daughters were recovering, and that the one who had faced some of the more serious injuries was getting filling in her legs. And I am happy to report this week that both are continuing to do well.
Excellent.
And the one who had to have surgery came through it successfully, and so does have filling in her legs. So that in light of all the bad around that story, there's a tad bit of good news.
That's good. That's good. It's just heartbreaking to see him dancing, being just goofy with his daughters, just being a dad and
not being that psycho killer character that he played. Right?
Exactly. And then to know that those girls don't get that dad anymore, and that both of them are still in the hospital is just heartbreaking. It's such a tragic story.
So if you do want to help folks, ROH, I guess /AEW is selling a Jay Briscoe tribute tee with 100% of the proceeds go directly to the family, as obviously the widow, the two daughters, the little boy who doesn't, because he wasn't in the accident, maybe is overlooked somewhat in this story. He also now is without a father. Mm-hmm. And you can go to Ring of Honor, their website, to buy that tee. I posted it to our Facebook today, so you can link directly to it from there, but definitely a good thing to do. It's a really cool t-shirt, and all the proceeds go to support that family. They're going to need it.
Absolutely. I got the email from 1 Hour Tees earlier today that mine is on the way. So
excellent. Okay. Wear it on the show.
As soon as I get it. I'm out of uniform tonight. I'm repping Wakanda tonight,
but Star Wars last week, Wakanda tonight. We'll get him back in a wrestling tee.
It's cold. I was gonna say it's cold. I have a lot of off wrestling hoodies during the winter months.
We need to get you some wrestling hoodies so that you can stay wrestling attired.
There we go.
Last item on the subject of the Jay Briscoe tragedy, but Warner Brothers Media, thankfully, have reversed their prior ban on the Briscoe brothers appearing on either TBS or TNT. If you don't understand why there was why there was this ban in the first place, I don't want to go into it here. We covered it extensively last week. You can feel free to go back and watch that to get the full details, but just happy that they have done the right thing. It was great to see Mark be allowed to wrestle Jay Briscoe in the main event on Dynamite this past week. Obviously very emotional, and also emotional and available for your viewing. If you haven't seen it, fans, go out to YouTube, AEW, and they posted a 3-hour Jay Briscoe tribute show that is extremely well done. Lots of tributes from the talent that worked with Jay closely through the years, as well as some of the greatest matches in Jay Briscoe's career, of which there are many. And the tributes are really touching, Doug. I don't know if you got the chance to work your way through it.
I haven't gotten my chance to see the whole 3 hours yet. I watched a few of the beginning matches. Yeah, I'm piecing it together, but man, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I mean, you open the show with a you don't think of the Samoan submission machine, you know, crying profusely, and just right off out of the gate, that's like the first image you have is this big scary man being just
mm-hmm,
a brother, a soldier out there on the road with Jay Briscoe, and it just
right.
immediately engrossing. So definitely go check that out. It took me several days too, a match or two at a time, but it was fun reliving the early days. It truly was a celebration. As much as it was sad, it was also uplifting to see people trading stories about Jay. Since you're piecing it together, it's closer to the very end. Of all people, I wouldn't have thought of Austin Gunn as stealing the show on the tributes, but he tells an
Oh wow.
amazing Jay Briscoe story that closer to the end that you'll love.
And just Jay Briscoe stories. I completely missed this, and I don't know how I did. But in my YouTube, like suggestions, yesterday, the Briscoes versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Kazuchika Okada pops up, and I'm like, yes, please. How did I miss this?
I know they're so synonymous with Ring of Honor. It's almost easy to forget that they had some really memorable matches in New Japan, some battles in
Mm,
CZW, some amazing contest in Impact. I mean, NWA, they won the Crockett Cup against some really great tag teams. They truly did do it all, except for what Mark got a chance to finally do this week for the first time. So still sad, and we'll continue to follow as details come out. Hopefully, they continue to be on the positive side as far as the family healing goes.
yes.
In other news, this past week we saw a lot of legends return for Raw and Raw 30, and one of those legends apparently used his time to make some amends. The Nature Boy stated on his podcast that he
Ooh.
personally apologized to Becky Lynch as well as to her husband Seth Rollins for the online Twitter beef that he had gotten into over the past couple of years with Becky over the use of the
Oh.
term "the man." Flair had
Mm-hmm.
sold the rights to WWE a few years back, but then he began to take more offense when the relationship between his daughter and
Sure.
Becky also soured. So let's hope that this is the end of it. Flair also mentioned that he hadn't really left on the best of terms with WWE, and he'd had some hurt feelings with them as well. And he hinted, without being really specific, as to what other apologies he made, but he definitely mentioned that he spent some time with Triple H and that he felt like he was welcome and that like sort of back in the fold sort of thing. So
Right.
hopefully Rick has gotten I know he is quick to be offended sometimes. Rick can be a really emotional fella, and when things go wrong, they go really, really wrong for Rick. And so hopefully this is gets them on the right footing together again.
Yeah, absolutely so. And if we learned anything in the past couple of weeks in wrestling, is that life is just too damn short. Even if you're
Yeah,
Ric Flair, who people think is going to live forever, and I think even the Nature Boy thinks that sometimes. But
yeah.
life is just too short.
Actually, he'd said something along. I mean, without saying those words, it was the same
Hmm.
sentiment that he had looked at Becky and realized how much time had passed since he'd actually been around her, and obviously she's now a mother, and he just all he could think of was that could be my granddaughter one day in this
Hmm.
situation, and it's just again, you're right, too short. So happy that
Yep.
Rick did the right thing, and hopefully, I know no telling how it was received, but hopefully it was as well received as it hopefully
Hmm.
was intended.
Right.
And speaking of Raw 30, the Wrestling Observer reported that the event caused MLW to have to send a cease and desist letter to
Oh.
WWE.
Oh.
According to the story, WWE tried to contact MLW contracted wrestlers to bring them in for Raw 30. Now, no names
Really?
were specifically given, but since there were plans to have a bloodline acknowledgement ceremony to include
Oh,
family members of the bloodline. The hot take rumor is WWE was
yeah.
interested in getting someone from the Anoa'i family in there. So both Jacob Fatu as well as Lance Anoa'i work shows for MLW. So it could have been either or both. And of course,
Both,
Fatu
yeah.
being a huge star in MLW. But the Bloodline segment ended up being dropped because Alpha got sick days before Raw and they canceled the whole thing, replaced it with Tribal Court, which we'll get into that more a little later. Ended up working out for all involved.
It really
Storyline wise.
did. Yeah. Was it? Didn't Rikishi also have like travel issues himself?
Yeah.
It's like all the Samoans had issues and just couldn't make it to acknowledge their tribal chief.
Which you know is just going to make him madder. He's having a rough week.
Everything makes him mad, dude. Everything. Like oxygen at this point makes him mad.
Makes him mad. Big Con, the former WWE star known as Connor, is now under a full-time contract with Impact Wrestling. It's a multi-year deal for the former NXT Tag Champ. And no word on how long that deal actually is or for how much money, but it's been a minute since Big Con has been in the ring, so we'll see how that turns out for him. Hopefully, well.
Yeah.
And then speaking of NXT, we'll end on this one, and it is a get well soon to one of my favorite NXT superstars, who I think is going to be just an all-around global superstar, but Nikita Lyons. The 23-year-old will be out and on the shelf for an undisclosed period of time.
Oh.
We can presume it's going to be a significant one because she suffered a torn ACL and meniscus. So she was written out of the storyline. If anyone watched NXT this past week, there was an injury angle in that dangerous NXT parking lot that everyone always gets beat up in.
That parking lot, man.
It's dangerous, man. You need to take a cab.
They need some lighting and security out there.
Get the Uber to drop you off at the door. You can't walk across that parking lot. But yeah, apparently that was not just a angle. There's a legit injury the angle was covering up for her. So unfortunately, she was out. One of the reasons probably she didn't end up in the Royal Rumble, as a lot of NXT talent ended up doing. But Nikita's super talented, and we want her back in the ring soon. So get well soon, Nikita Lyons.
Absolutely.
And with that, Doug. Are you ready to rumble?
Man, I am always ready to rumble. To start the road to WrestleMania, it's always one of the most exciting times in wrestling. I was trying to explain to my wife because she was like, is this kind of like the Super Bowl? Can we say Super Bowl? Are we going to get like copyright strike or something else since I said that? The big game, for wrestling. I was like, no, it's kind of like, the only thing, sports analogy, because, I don't know sports ball anyway, but the only analogy I could think of was like, this is like the playoffs basically, where like the stage begins to get set for WrestleMania. And that's what I really loved. We saw a lot of that last night. So
Doug doesn't know his sports ball because that one of those games is actually going on right now opposite us, Doug. So that's how attuned he is to the sports ball. But yes.
Well, I hate that for them because I know all sports fans are watching us right now. So
that's exactly right. It doesn't matter that Cincinnati's in the game and that's our regional team, but they're wanting to know what happened at Royal Rumble. And that
absolutely
is what we are talking about in our main event. And so if you did not watch, this is the spoiler-free review. And we'll let Doug, I want you to have your take in case we don't agree. But in general, I think obviously the Rumble is always must watch. I thought both Rumbles delivered that neither were exceptional on the high end, but they were sort of both eventful enough that they were never boring, so they were not on the low end either. And especially after last year, which had one of the worst men's rumbles in recent memory, this was a big step up. I'm not saying the show was perfect. We will get into the match by match. There was actually some skippable nonsense that we'll get into. But for me, it's thumbs up. Watch the two Rumble matches and then the main event. Oh yeah, a mild spoiler. The Royal Rumble matches, neither were the main event. That should tell you why you need to stay tuned to the very end. Big angle at the end.
Well, that's the whole thing, man, because I'm not going to say the main event's skippable because the actual wrestling match was good, but the what transpires after the main event was truly the main event of Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Yes, and it was very apparent from the beginning of the show when you started to realize that the Rumble matches weren't going to be bookending this thing. Like something big was afoot. It just was what, and they did deliver, in my opinion, on that. So, is that a thumbs up from you as well, Doug, for folks to go?
Where's my camera? Oh, I'm still not used to my new setup. The camera's over here. Yes, thumbs
and
up.
it's clean, man. I can see the fingerprints. It's
clean. That's right. I cleaned all the glass before we went live, except the ones on my face. I waited till we got on air to clean those.
Bros, 4 thumbs, all up. Watch Royal Rumble, and we will tell you the matches you can skip. But this is when we get into spoiler territory. So if you haven't yet seen the Royal Rumble, you come back and join in this discussion. Let us know what you think of these matches, because we're going match by match. And Doug, the surprises of the night started, and they were not in anything to do with the Royal Rumble match. The surprise opening is that Pat McAfee had
surprise returned. Yes.
Not the kind of returns we think of when we think of Royal Rumble,
right?
But boy, Michael Cole sure seemed happy to have Pat back, and they made it seem like he was back at least semi-permanently. Obviously, his football job would be winding down.
So that's a couple of questions I have about some of because we're always going to get surprise returns. A few legends show up. Love what they did with some legends tonight, like surprise legends, even surprising legends. Love that, which we'll get into in a minute. But I'm wondering if some of the returns last night are, I need that, ex wrestler is, WWE now. Like we have the tweets afterwards that so and so is all elite now. I need those to get some clarification on some of the people that showed up last night, because I'm hoping some of the people were just one-offs, and I'm hoping some of the which I think I texted you and Jer about last night when it happened.
Yeah, I think.
And then others I would like to see, permanent, and their significant others as well make a comeback. But again, we can talk about that, shortly.
So, were you surprised to see them start with a men's rumble? Because as soon as they started with the men's rumble, I thought, they must have something big cooked up for the women's rumble, and it will be going on last. I had presumed the women's rumble would be first, but they pretty much gave away the Rock was not going to be appearing by the fact that it would be your opening contest.
So, yeah, they absolutely teased that. But I had gotten a text earlier in the day from my nephew. What's up, TY? I hope you're watching tonight. We were both wrong about that main event, but that's okay. It still worked out in our favor, I think. But, he told me that, Rumble was going on first, and the Universal Heavyweight, whatever that championship is called, the Unified Championship, that was the main event. So I was like, okay, something big is definitely going down. Because, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, and if you don't know, maybe somebody watching does comment or leave us something. But this is the first Rumble where the men's Royal Rumble has not main evented, right? So I mean, that was like the big flare, woo, that we are getting something special.
Yeah, I don't know that that's true. I know it's never opened before. And obviously we've only had 6 years. Never opened. We've had only 6 years where the women's rumble was also on the card. But yeah, you definitely knew something was up, and that the Rock was probably not showing up in match 1 if he was showing up at all. So I guess we'll go ahead and note that the Rock did not show up in the Royal Rumble match. Sami Zayn was not in the Royal Rumble match. There was some thought that the Bloodline storyline maybe would carry into the Rumble somehow to, set up Roman's opponent for Mania. That's not the route they went with this either. So what we had was a match that was devoid of the shadow of Roman Reigns, which we kind of thought could be the whole purpose of this, is to, to bring in the whole family angle, be it to The Rock and or Sami Uso, but not the case.
Well, they even foreshadowed that a little bit in I think it was the pre-show where Roman tells Sami, "Stay on my side, stay at my hip all night long."
Yeah.
And of course, Sammy's, nobody in Bloodline has declared for the Royal Rumble because, apparently you could just declare and say, hey, I'm in it. No qualifying matches for anybody there. So it makes sense from a storyline perspective that you remove Sammy or even Solo from that, because I don't know why, Jimmy or Jay would be in it. They're the, intergalactic, universal, multidimensional tag team champions. So they shouldn't be. They're not singles wrestlers, not yet anyway. But yeah, so I don't. Yeah, it makes sense from a storyline perspective, but they took the time to address that, even if it wasn't a pre-show, which I usually miss the pre-show, but I watched it this time so I could talk
Yeah.
about the match that was going to happen during the pre-show because I always miss
Yeah.
that match. And you know what? They didn't do a match. I got Jerry the
They
King Lawler rambling for an hour.
they rarely do matches in the pre-show anymore, but they did set it up with some backstage work for
Mm-hmm.
sure. They set the stage for the men's Rumble match itself by starting with Gunther at number 1 and Sheamus at number 2. So
My
basically, they gave us a
goodness.
Clash at the Castle rematch
Yeah,
for
part two. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
and of course they did not disappoint. And then by the time we start to get some other guys involved, there was a great double team by Johnny Gargano and Sheamus to comically eliminate the Miz, which
Yes.
I mean, the Rumble is about moments as much as it is the winner. So I took
Absolutely.
notes whenever there was a moment. Doug, second year in a row that Kofi's trick spot went awry. Do you think
I
it's time that
know.
they maybe start to retire these because everyone always expects him to? And I'm wondering if age and the bar being set so high, but it looked like he was supposed to maybe land in a chair to
Land
save
in a
himself.
chair, and it wasn't Cole. It was oh gosh, the other guy, the tattooed guy, can't Corey, or wasn't it Corey
Corey
Graves
Graves.
pushing that he actually his feet didn't touch and he was in a chair before they finally say, okay, yeah, but we're just gonna let the spot go. It
Yeah,
didn't
I
happen.
think he was trying to save it in case they wanted to
Uh-huh.
get him back in the ring.
Yep.
But I'm not so sure he didn't legit hurt himself because the chair fell over, and reports are that he did lay there for an extended period of time and was
Oh.
holding his head. So I mean that chair was stationed pretty close to the announce desk. He could have very well hit his
Mm-hmm.
head on that, but it did not even look close, honestly, to working. It was like right out
Yeah.
the gate. It just went straight over. It's not like he almost made it. It was not even as close as it was, and I don't remember what the botch was last year, but even last year's
Mm-hmm.
came closer than it did this year. So it may be time to stick a pin in the. They said it was his like 15th Rumble anyway. Like he's given
That's
us
what
enough of those.
So I was going to say, let's pass that torch on to some young, acrobatic parkour stud, and let
Yeah,
Kofi go off, and stop doing things that could potentially put him in danger.
hurt himself. And
Yeah.
speaking of people that are in danger, and that's pretty much anyone that gets in the way of Brock Lesnar. Lesnar
It's
came in at number 12, and immediately I thought, okay, there's too many people in the ring. He's going to start thinning the herd, and he did.
exactly that's what it's. We joke so much about Lesnar being like, in case of emergency, break glass, release Lesnar, and even in this situation, it's like, okay, that ring is way too full. Send out Lesnar.
And the funny thing is that yes, we were getting a little tired, despite as good as they were together. We don't need Lesnar Reigns again, but
Mm-mm.
Lesnar Lashley has me intrigued. Lesnar and
Yes.
anybody else has me intrigued. There was
Lesnar.
a
Yeah.
brief like
Yeah.
moment that they had. Just
Yes.
you felt it too. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
please let's see that at some point, that Brock Gunther
Mm-hmm.
moment, just
Mm-hmm.
a tease that sets the stage hopefully for something down the road.
Something down the line, especially, with the performance Gunther turned in. I still want to call him Walter, but with that
Because that's
performance
his
he turned,
name.
I know, right? With that performance he turned in last night, yes, let's give him some Lesnar at some point. Come on.
Are you surprised that Lesnar was not in it longer than he was? Because that actually was one of the first shocks of the night. As Bobby Lashley did get a bit of revenge on Brock, he was out in 3 minutes.
So that's the thing, like we were talking about before. it's kind of like the playoffs where it starts to set the stage, you start to
Yeah,
set the table. You see a lot of that with the Rumble match itself. It's like, my niece was over here watching it with us too. Well, she was just here. I'm not sure how much she was actually watching. But I was explaining to her that okay, this is going to lead to something at WrestleMania. That's definitely leading to something. And she's like, "How do you know?" I was like, "This is what this is about." And
that's
I'm
what
an
it's
old
about.
mark, so this starts. It's not necessarily about who. It is absolutely about who wins. That is a
Yeah,
big part of the Rumble, absolutely. But the things that happen in that hour plus also start, are these little seeds to
yeah.
to sprinkle about and watch
Other
these
stories.
storylines grow. Yeah,
I don't know about you, but I actually would look forward to Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. I think that on the
absolutely.
undercard, I like that a lot. Lesnar, of course, getting
Absolutely.
eliminated goes absolutely nuts, destroys the ringside area, smashes the announce table, and then Baron Corbin. We give Baron a lot of slack because no one likes Baron Corbin, but the dude will do anything to get anybody over. Like he does not care to
He
make the fool of himself to get
he
somebody
really
else over.
the dude really shows up and does the work. Let me
He
just say
does.
that. I mean, not a fan. I liked him when he was like the biker, like Goldberg back in NXT. I really liked those short matches that he had where he just destroyed everybody back when he had hair and everything. But coming up to the main roster, I just could never get into him. But you're absolutely right. He does what he needs to do to get the job done.
He was the fodder for Lesnar's anger tonight, and so
Hmm.
that was the setting of the stage number one. We had some further storyline development in the match when your number, I think 17, did not come out. Rey Mysterio's music played, and when the next participant comes out, conveniently enough, it happened to be
Right?
his son.
Oh,
I mean, what are the
shocking.
odds that those numbers would be drawn? And out comes Dom in Ray's mask.
Hmm.
Um, I thought, I'm thinking, okay, that's pretty clever and pretty
Hmm.
cool. Doug, it turns out though, I found out today that Ray legit had an injury and was pulled from the Rumble. So maybe that was something they decided that, oh, hey, wouldn't it be
Okay.
cool if? I thought that might have been the plan all along, just because it
Yeah, me
was
too.
comical and so well done. But yeah, Ray apparently, I'm not sure what's wrong, but something was wrong.
Okay, because I saw a couple of thumbnails on YouTube today. The real reason your Rey Mysterio wasn't in the Royal Rumble, I'm like, well, okay, that's very clickbaity. It's a storyline, but okay, maybe not. Okay.
Yeah. And so, I've still got a few notes here on some other things in the match, but I guess before we even get to who wins, it should be noted that they outlasted 28 other men and not 29 other men because Ray was not replaced. No
That's
one
what I was
ever
going to
came
say.
out.
So technically, Ray's never been eliminated from a Royal Rumble match.
Ray's still in this thing, man. Who
Yeah.
was it? Was it Zack Ryder 4 or
No,
5
it
years
was
ago?
McGillicuddy. Was it Mike? Did they call it Mike McGillicuddy? Mr. Perfect's son.
Oh, yes. That was actually hilarious that he was
Yes.
still not eliminated. Like 3 or 4 months later, he was still
Hmm.
in the Royal Rumble, technically.
Yep.
Doug, I know what a big Booker T fan you are. So were you happy to see a Spinneroonie at number 21?
Here's the thing, Booker T didn't get the pop. Oh, I mean, he got a pop. Him,
It's Texas.
him. Yeah, he exactly. He gets a pop. But the thing, most Booker T related that anything that happened in the ring or him coming out, the thing that got the big pop was the spinneroonie. And I was totally marking out for the spinneroonie. I was like, do the spinneroonie, do the spinneroonie. And he did it. So
And it got him eliminated, really, because hey, it really it's a wonder that doesn't happen more often. With that thing is like it's a great time to kick the man when he's doing the
yeah,
spinneroonie.
it
But
truly is. And it
he
seems like with
really
all.
was that was the first real surprise of the Rumble as far as like who had been in it to that point. That's number
Mhm.
21, and that was the first like, oh, it's a legend. And I mean, there was so many rumors as to what surprises they had cooked up. And I will say that even though I enjoyed the match as a whole, it was a little short on those surprises.
It was sure on surprises, but I kind of liked that. I was like, oh, look, here comes Kevin Nash, and here comes Mick Foley. We didn't see that, and I'm kind of
No,
glad we didn't. I like what we got out of the Rumble as a whole. You know, I just really enjoyed both Rumbles. One was my favorite of the two, and later on we'll talk about that. But yeah, I just really liked the Rumble, and it seemed to me that Triple H's fingerprints were all over the Royal
This yeah,
Rumble.
this was definitely a noticeable change to last year when it was Shane McMahon that was producing the Rumble, and
Yes.
it really was considered one of the worst Royal Rumbles in men's Royal Rumble history.
Hmm.
Doug, we had another legend come back though. I will say before I get to that though, at one point we had all Judgment Day members in at the same time, and they took advantage of that as a team, which I always love seeing that in Rumble when a team works together. And then out comes the
So
Judgment Day's nemesis.
here's the thing. I'm telling my niece, like she even cared, but I'm like, okay, all three of these guys are out here. So now the next couple of entrants is going to come this other guy who was like the founder of Judgment Day. But then, bad things happen and he's against them now. And she's like, okay, and then continues to text her friend. But
I think we actually both called this one too on the preview last week as far as who we thought would be making appearances. Edge is one that we mentioned
right.
as a very likely participant. He was at number 24, and then immediately went to work as he should, getting revenge, getting 2/3 of Judgment Day out. But they got the retribution though when they pulled Edge over while he was eliminating Dom.
And to be clear, Retribution didn't pull Edge out of the ring.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but
Revenge.
yeah, but it was all just so perfect, and even the announcers are on top of it. I think Cole and Graves, add so much, and they're such a good team, and McAfee's great too. But just adding, okay, and it's a no disqualification, and they can do that kind of stuff. But it was just all poetry. Yeah, it really was. A lot of these spots were.
I will say that when I thought Edge would be returning, I thought, okay, it also means that Beth is likely to return. I
Of course.
expected her in the women's Rumble match. She was not.
Same.
The men's
Nope.
Rumble match actually ended up being the setup for a Beth return as well. So there may be something between now and WrestleMania for one person we'll talk more about later. But yes, Beth made her appearance known, defending her husband in the rampway area, actually. Which, by the way, what a long ramp!
And then a curve at the end.
I mean, when you're having to make these, like by the time the 90 seconds was up, they were just getting in the ring. And the next person was starting their way down this aisle. Very long aisle last night.
It was a ridiculously long ramp, and it had this weird curve at the end of it. But yeah, it was yeah. So Elimination Chamber is in Canada, right? Is it in Montreal?
It is.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
I love the elimination spot that we had with Sheamus and Drew both going out at the hands of Gunther. That was fantastic. Doug, we get towards the end of this thing, and you're thinking, here comes the big surprises. And then Logan Paul is number 29, and this brings a lot of boos. So do you think the boos were because you're not The Rock, or do people legitimately hate Logan Paul that much?
I'm going to say both. Because my niece, again, my barometer for pop culture, looks up and goes, "Oh yeah, Logan Paul. He wrestles." And then she talks.
I guess that's the point, right?
And then exactly, and then she talked about how she used to be into him, but yeah, not so much anymore, and not for a couple of years. But I think. Especially, I guess there's a lot of scandal around some sort of NFT ridiculousness he's doing right here, or he's involved in right now anyway. So he's got some legitimate outside of wrestling heat on him. But you cannot deny, and I will fist fight anybody who says otherwise, but you cannot deny this man's athletic ability. And once again, he proves that no celebrity, should be this good in a WWE ring, just coming like off the street like he does. And he does it time and time again, just like Bad Bunny.
Men's Rumble, women's Rumble, main event, all the other like shenanigans that we'll get to in a minute. Like there was nothing that beat the spot that Logan Paul and Ricochet, they had the spot of the night.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
if you don't know what we're talking about, fans, it was a coast to coast, either side of the ring, Ricochet coming from one ring apron, catapulting himself using the ropes, and Logan Paul doing the same, meet mid-ring, mid-air
Boom.
collision. I guess both apparently going for clotheslines, but it was truly a moment that brought the 50,000 to their feet, and rightfully so. That was impressive.
It's an amazing spot, especially when you see it the first time. You go back and watch it again, it looks like some weird, like midair hug crash thing.
And to your point, though, Doug, only one of those two is a full-time, long-time wrestler who is considered one of the greatest high flyers of this generation. And Paul just did the same move that Ricochet did and looked just as slick doing it as Ricochet did. That says all you need to know right there, right?
Logan Paul, he gets the psychology of wrestling. He can work a crowd. He is a natural heel. And my goodness, the athletic ability this kid has. I mean, and then, and I think later on in the men's Royal Rumble match, we see where Logan Paul's going to fit in on the WrestleMania card. So,
like you said, the seeds get planted. It's not just the
do.
winner. However,
exactly.
Once he's out at number 29, we know, okay, no Rock, this is done with surprises, because we all knew who was going to be number 30 because he had been announced in advance. Cody did get a nice pop for number 30 for his return, which had been advertised for a while. Doug, I will pat myself on the back for all I got wrong in this. I was half right on my final four, at least, that Seth and Cody were in the final four. I would not have guessed that Gunther would be one of the final four. But the last two men in this match were number 30 and number 1.
Number 1, yes.
And Gunther and Rhodes had one of the longer sequences I had ever seen for a final two. Like, usually when it's down to the final two, you're just a few seconds away from whatever the finish is going to be. And they actually went for a surprising long time in there.
Yeah, they had like a 5-6 minute match, really. And you throw wrestling psychology out of the window too here, because you have the heel, in Gunther, who is working as heel with the Imperium and everything, being at a massive disadvantage, being in the ring for well over an hour at this point, and then the fresh babyface coming in at number 30, with a obvious advantage, but Gunther proved his worth, man.
We talked last week who do we think is going to be the one that, you're not going to win it, but somebody always gets that big shine, that big spotlight. And we mentioned the big men that we thought would,
Sure.
the Omosas, the folks that will come in and do a lot of eliminations. Lesnar, who did do that for 3 minutes, but without a doubt, the star of the night was Gunther.
Absolutely.
I mean, if that doesn't show that Triple H has faith in that man for bigger things, that is your gold star, employee of the year, seal of approval, corporate champion. Like, you didn't win, but you were in at actually, Gunther set a record last night. That was the longest anyone had ever been in the men's Royal Rumble. And that distinction now belongs to Gunther. And he chopped the crap out of some dudes on his way to lasting whatever it was, an hour, 10 minutes or something like that. But Cody won. There was some great stuff there at the end. I said that if The Rock was there, he was winning. If The Rock wasn't there, I picked Cody. So there wasn't a lot of surprises as far as entrance, and there maybe wasn't a surprise as far as who won once we knew who all was in there. But sometimes the way that it goes is the way it should go for a reason, instead of a surprise just for the sake of a surprise. I can't complain with the outcome. Doug, I don't know what you thought, but overall, the bar was so low from last year's men's Rumble. I thought that even though it didn't have the same amount of surprises one might expect, it was a solid Rumble. I wonder, though, considering that they didn't have those big ooh and ah surprises as far as entrance, do you think Cody's win would have meant more had they decided not to hype it in advance? I know everyone expected it'd be about time, and maybe he will, maybe he won't. But if you think that if you didn't know in advance and he came in at number 30 and then pulled it off, you'd have had an even bigger reaction for Cody?
So here's something interesting. I think, and I don't know why they did this, but I saw something today where Cody was not even cleared to wrestle until the morning of Rumble. So I don't know what they would have done, what glass they would have broken for number 30 if the docs came back and said, yeah, he's healed up nicely, but he is not ready. All the work he's put in, he's not ready. I don't know if that would have turned into like somebody jumping a mangle or what, but I wonder what
Or
the
him coming in
contingency.
at number 30 and a slip on a banana peel and Gunther
Right,
charges, he
yeah,
ducks, and he gets a
exactly.
couple more weeks off without having to touch anybody.
Yeah, so I'm really wondering what kind of contingency plans that were in place for that if the man really wasn't even cleared to wrestle until that morning. And because I think the Rumble was great, and I do really like that there wasn't a lot of like shock returns. I didn't get my Tomatonga, but that's
I didn't get
okay.
Miro.
Yeah, didn't get Miro, didn't get Tomatonga, but that's okay because
Although CJ Park, Lana was there, actually.
oh
I
yeah.
saw her Instagram picture. She's in the crowd, I guess, supporting WWE talent that she's still friends with.
Go team. So, but I kind of liked it because it subverted my expectations of what a Royal Rumble should be. So I'm happy to be the confused mark when I'm watching wrestling every once in a while.
And it was confusing because there was the indication that they had given, at least in the trade sheets, that they were so satisfied with the surprises they had in store that that's why they decided to go ahead and start advertising Cody, which in some ways set some expectations that didn't get realized. So some folks who turned in very well may have been disappointed and probably were shocked from the beginning when it opens. But as an opener and as a winner that everyone is wanting to see continue that journey he was on, I was very happy with it. But let's go on to the next match, Doug, and talk about subverting expectations. I know this was your match of the night. Doug, we now know what a Mountain Dew pitch black match is. It is apparently wrestling in blacklight.
It is a blacklight match.
It's a blacklight match.
It's a black match. I was feeling the glow. There was no pitch black. There was a lot of glow. I think we were having a text conversation back and forth, just looking for Naomi to show up and do her dance.
LA Knight versus Bray Wyatt. Immediately the lights dim. It's black light. Your ring ropes are neon. The soda company's sponsorship logo is in the middle of the ring. And then they basically just have a no DQ match. There was some ridiculousness of some like neon confetti that exploded out of the announce table or something. Yeah, not sure what that was about.
I don't know either. And here's the thing, they could have done this and still done it well because I think Bray Wyatt looked really cool in the black light, for all the comic geeks out there. I was talking to my son about how he looked like a lot like Lobo with the red eyes and like just the whole look. He had a very Lobo vibe going on there, and I really like that. You could have done it better. You didn't need all that neon garbage everywhere, so we're glowing like we're in a rave or something. If you're going to use Bray Wyatt to be spooky and be the Wyatt family, Wyatt Six, Uncle Howdy, all this, you don't put him in a rave. He just don't put him in a rave.
The crowd was very, in my mind, and I don't know what you thought on your end, the audio coming through for you, but it just seemed quiet. I don't know if the crowd just wasn't into it, didn't know what to make of it, or if they were just worn out by that Royal Rumble before. And maybe a combination of all of the above, but to me, I'm not sure it did Bray Wyatt any favors to have his actual return match be a gimmick cool down match after a pretty hot opening Rumble. It seemed like a bad position to put your biggest merchandise seller in. Maybe you should have saved that for a little bit later or a different night even.
And I don't know about you, but the match itself was a 3-4 minute Raw match. It was a TV match under black light with like some sort of like I don't even know if there was any development at the end of it with Uncle Howdy's massive miss of LA Knight.
Uncle Howdy had an impressive plunge. That is the closest thing we had to any storyline development, except when the replay goes, you go, he missed him by a good 2-3 feet.
Just, and look at some fan footage that's out there. It's like safety
Yeah.
first, no doubt. I'm all about safety for wrestlers, absolutely. But,
Yeah.
come on.
And
But the
there was a
impressive
whole
thing,
lot of it. Go ahead.
as I say, the impressive thing, that top hat never came off Uncle Howdy from that 20-foot drop or whatever it was. Dude kept his hat on. It's like straight up Indiana Jones action there.
Other than the miss, the fall itself was an impressive leap. But considering how much time had been dedicating to hyping this match, I
Yeah.
expected a little bit more than a 4-minute, like you said, TV contest. And honestly, it wouldn't have been a good TV match either. It was just
Mm-mm.
there. And speaking of just there, I will go ahead. The next match to me was also kind of just there. Bianca Belair successfully defended and retained her championship against Alexa Bliss. I had thought that that there was a chance that Bliss actually would win this because I expected there to be
Right.
storyline development there. And yeah, there was the expected angle at the end where you saw some flashes of some, but it's nothing we hadn't already been seeing on TV. There was no advancement
Right.
at all in my mind, and there was
Yeah,
and the crowd wasn't into this one either.
it's like, they've got they have such a talent with Bray Wyatt. Wyndham Rotunda has like this amazing creative mind, but I'm not sure that they still, even under a Triple H regime, really know what to do with him, man. And with the thing that happened before with the Pitch Black, corporate sponsorship match, and then into this Alexa Bliss thing, I expected more from both of these, and not just like. I mean, this is beyond a slow burn at this point. Something needs to happen. We need some forward momentum.
Well, you know, Rumble is about WrestleMania. It's the start of WrestleMania season, so it's all right to have expectations that all roads are going to start pointing that way. And both of these seemed like stand in place storyline matches to me. Nothing was advanced at all. There was nothing that happened last night to Bray Wyatt or his soon to be protege in the women's match. Nothing in either of those matches advanced anything.
These were, it was almost two back-to-back cooler matches before,
It was.
moving on.
And I mean, it is Royal Rumble, so it's understandable. And maybe that should be a lesson that we shouldn't try to put too many big matches, not matches you
True.
spend a lot of time, like title matches, or, you could have a match or two that you need a cool down match, but they put a lot of time into the Bray Wyatt stuff to have it be considered a cool down. I don't think that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
Doug, let's talk women's Royal Rumble.
Let's talk women's Royal Rumble.
Rhea and Liv are the first two in. The surprises were much more so in the women's match, just because you and I correctly pointed out last week that they would likely fill this with legends. They didn't. To their credit, that shows that they're expanding their roster. But there was a lot of NXT.
Well, I think it's an acknowledgement that they don't need to pad a women's Royal Rumble with a bunch of legends to get eyes on the product, because they have enough of homegrown current talent there to represent the women's division in a Rumble match. A few legends, absolutely. It's expected. You had Booker T in the men's. You had, I love the spot. Now, I hope I'm not getting ahead of your notes, but when Michelle McCool's music plays and she's in the audience with her kids, and she's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'm game." I love that.
I hope the Undertaker loved that. I mean, she did abandon their children there at ringside, so.
This is so true.
I was surprised that the men's match didn't use the opportunity to elevate some NXT folks to show Braun Breaker, as you and I maybe thought might happen. The first real surprise entrant of the night in either Rumble match that wasn't just a legend was the main roster debut of Roxanne Perez at number 8. And man, she got a crowd response too, and it was an impressive showing. She wasn't in it long, but she showed off a really impressive move set. The crowd was behind her, and notably, the announce team put her over like she was the next big thing. So that's what you use an NXT call up for.
Exactly. There was some almost downselling of NXT at a couple points during that match, though, about like Corey, you know what's going on here, or whatever they were talking about. It's like, okay, come on, guys, don't pretend like you don't watch the product. That's not cool. You're not Jerry Lawler.
Who doesn't
Who
actually watch the
doesn't?
product?
Exactly.
All of Damage Control were in the first 10, which again, much like with the men's earlier with Judgment Day, I love it when a faction is in there together and start causing some chaos. We had Zoe Starks, another one from NXT. Asuka came in under a new sort of persona, like that was more similar to her. I mean, the Empress of Tomorrow character had a really cool look last night, from the opening mask to what she looked like.
Yes, the face paint underneath, the slightly different hair, the different makeup. It's just like a mild repackaging, which kind of like is like a soft reset for Asuka. So I'm excited with that.
And I have this on the next note. I know this is probably, to me, the greatest thing that happened in either Rumble match last night, and I think that from your text you agree.
Yes, I do.
We hated the name Dewdrop from the moment that, I mean, what in the world was that supposed to be anyway? Piper Niven is back, Doug. Piper Niven.
I'm not sure. Yeah, Piper Niven, it was never on the main roster, was she? I mean, it was always Dewdrop. And, I love that she came out. And, well, clearly, you know how much I love it because I'm texting away about it. No more of this, Dewdrop BS. Love that. I love that Piper Niven is on the main roster now, not this ridiculous Dewdrop crap.
If last night was your first experience with Piper Niven, folks, the character of Piper Niven was fantastic, a monster in NXT UK, and to see her finally show up on the main roster with what's her name, Eva Marie, and then doing the Dewdrop stuff and comedy. I mean, like, no one has seen, if you've not seen NXT UK, no one saw what this lady is capable of until last night. Kudos to Triple H for making that much needed change. That was the surprise, the most welcome surprise of the night.
Absolutely.
Maybe less so this next one, Doug. Were you surprised to see Becky and Bayley eliminated so early instead of teased for being winners? Because they both were out ridiculously early.
They both were out ridiculously early, but I kind of, again, it's subverting my expectations for the Rumble match and the people who I think should be in place at times. So I really do like that. And again, I think you see Triple H's fingerprints all over this Rumble match too, because you got a lot more NXT from the women's division in this, and a lot of, again, expectations being subverted. Because again, I'm thinking Becky, Bayley, top 4, top 5.
Yeah. No. So maybe that might be a good surprise to go, this is going to not, this is going to go to somebody who is not, the standard bearers that are always going to be there. Maybe that subversion of your expectations, Doug, you're not going to be so happy about with this next note, but maybe not the way you saw Chelsea Green making her long-awaited debut.
No. Before I could even text you about how happy about this I was, she was eliminated.
They said, I don't know what the time on it is, but they said it was the quickest elimination. I don't know if it was when you fact check with a timer, but Chelsea Green was in and was immediately eliminated, which I'm sure is not the way that she saw her debut going, and hopefully that does not portend for the way she's going to be treated. Because Michael Cole even made some joke about how, we didn't even have enough time to make fun of her husband. So I'm hoping that's not what they're going to use the Chelsea Green screen time for.
Yeah, I mean, and Chelsea Green's the one I was, specifically talking about a return. Was this a one-off, or is Chelsea back in WWE? And if so, where is Zack Ryder?
She has been long rumored to be signed, but there's never been anything official. So who knows? Maybe this will be the lead to a storyline that brings her and her husband back, and maybe some good will come out of it. But it seemed like a wasted opportunity at this point.
Wasted.
We'll see if there's any follow-up that maybe saves it, but right now it's not looking so promising. I tell you what did look good, though. Her cosplay game is so strong with Zelina Vega. Continues to be strong. Zelina comes out as Jury from Street Fighter, announces a partnership where she's doing commentary on the new Street Fighter 6 game. She looked fantastic, man. She
looked fantastic. And did you catch the nod to her husband? I really thought she was going to hit a black mass kick on the apron. Was it Xia Li that she brings up with her foot, just like Aleister Black always did before you'd hit the black mass? And I was like, oh, a little nod to her husband. I love it.
Liv Morgan this past year has finally, for all her hard work, been the fans love her and wanted her. And last night they continued the Liv as a legit undersized underdog female Rey Mysterio type. Like, don't underestimate them. She was in from almost beginning to end. I want to see that same thing for Zelina. I think Zelina is another undersized but underappreciated talent. When whatever she does extremely well. I would love it if more than just that brief amount of time they gave her the Queen gimmick, if she gets some extended play out of this Street Fighter tie-in, because that lady is super talented, and we've only scratched the surface of it.
And you kind of forget that, she can actually go in the ring. That's not really the role that WWE has really ever had for her. But
no, but like you said, you thought she was going for the. I mean, I did too.
I thought she lifted Xia Li up by the chin with a foot. I was like, she's going to spin around on the apron and hit a black mass and take her out of the Royal Rumble like that.
And had she done it, I mean, this would have been following the earlier Canadian Destroyer she pulled off in the ring, which is not an easy move. So again, her in-ring skills are very often overlooked.
And just as a side note, I'm pretty sure every Canadian Destroyer always warps reality, because I don't know what's going on in that moment when everybody's flipping around. And it should not. The person that gets hurt during the Canadian Destroyer doesn't look like the person that should get hurt. I love the move. It breaks my brain every time I see it.
Looks like the move. The biggest impact is on Doug when someone pulls that one off. Doug gets hurt.
I get a concussion every time somebody does a Canadian Destroyer and I see it.
Indy Hartwell made a debut from NXT. That was nice to see. Nikki Cross, maybe with the entrance of the night. That lady was booking it, man. That was a ridiculously long one, and it was not a casual jog. That lady was sprinting to the ring.
And also, I forget if it was Cole or Corey Graves that dropped the sanity teaser when he mentioned there's no sanity here tonight. When talking about Nikki Cross.
Didn't catch that.
Yeah.
It's been a year, Doug. How happy were you to see the return, the big return, the family member of The Rock that everyone expected to be there, Roman Reigns? Actually, we didn't get The Rock, and we thought we might get Naomi, but we did get a Roman Reigns family member, just not either of the two that people were hoping for.
No, just like I texted you, this is unnecessary. This is a spot. This is unnecessary. To me, this is Eva Marie type heat that I have with this girl, and I'm not really sure why.
She wasn't that popular backstage with her peers either. She wasn't known to be the safest, and I'm not trying to demean anyone here or want people to make their living. I just not sure that Nia Jax is the right fit to be back, but she yelled that she was back. I don't know if that's just playing things up in the ring or if that's legit. I'm back, but I'm hoping it's thank you for coming. Here's your payday. You can go home now.
That's another one I need to see is Nia Jax. I don't not that WWE owes me anything, but I need to know these things. I need to know if she's back in the company, just like I need to know if Chelsea Green's back in the company.
So no Naomi, no Sasha. There was still a lot of women in the ring, and after all 30, like usually you're down to 3 or 4 once 30's in there. But that ring was still pretty full at 30. Liv and Rhea and Asuka had a really cool sequence, I thought, at the end. Liv and Rhea both, again, I know Rhea's going to get a lot of credit, rightfully so. Mommy had a night. Mommy had the Gunther thing, except she actually won. But Liv was there all the way to the end too. She was in that for over an hour. So give
Yes.
Liv a supporting actress credit for her work last night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That whole like the blue mist, mommy
Oh yeah,
ducks it, lives
and Liv takes it.
blinded. Yeah,
And I almost
that
thought for a
that
second she was going to pull it off, even blinded, because they really
I
made you
did.
think that it might
They
happen.
really made you think that too. And kudos to Rhea Ripley because I thought she legit slipped.
Oh
When
yeah,
she does her
yeah,
like slip spot, and
yeah.
then she's skinning the cat, and I'm like, was she supposed to? Is she just holding on to Liv can get over to her and bump her, and then she'll go down? But then Liv, I think, takes one of the hardest bumps of the night, or at least it looked like the hardest bump of the night. So kudos to those girls for making it look so hard. But
And they
that
were in for
finished.
both of them set a record. Like no
Yes.
woman had been in that long, and both Liv and Rhea were in for over an hour and looked great. Yeah, I'm with you. Great finishing sequence, furthering Liv as that undersized, underrated underdog who's tougher than you give her credit for. And then Rhea Ripley's came a long way since last year. It's
Hmm.
obvious, Doug, where Cody Rhodes is going. Who do you think that it makes the most sense for Rhea Ripley to go for? She's actually got two choices,
Oh.
one of which we've sort of seen, but maybe not
Hmm.
to its fullest potential. The other of which could be we've not really seen it, and I would love to see two powerhouses in Bianca and Rhea go at it.
Yes, that's what I would love to see is Bianca and Rhea. And Rhea dislocated her knee during the match and worked through
Yeah,
that. She said it
and
popped
popped it
out and
back in, popped
popped
it
back
in.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because mommy is just hardcore like that.
I would be happy if it's as Flair, but I think for my money, I would love it to be Bianca.
You give Bianca and Rhea a WrestleMania match, just stand back. There's I say it way too much on the show, but that's one of those we all win. Everybody watching wins if we
I
get
think there's
that.
more fresh faces for Bianca since Bianca's on the younger side. So
Hmm.
they could go somewhere else with it and leave Rhea and Charlotte as a fresh match because I don't think there's as much fresh contest for Charlotte on the other side.
Hmm.
So, but I still kind of just personally would root for Rhea
I think
Bianca right now. But
I think
yeah,
you're also looking at just stable wise. You need to keep Rhea, on Raw with the rest of the House of Purple,
yeah.
and and you've got Bianca there. So and we keep Charlotte over on SmackDown doing her thing over there. So on paper, just talking it out right now, it makes sense that Rhea does go after Bianca. And yes, please, can I see that? Let's book that.
Rhea Ripley is his WrestleMania bound. And then I'm going to say we only had one more thing left, Doug, but I
We
guess we
really
had
had
two more things.
things. Yeah.
Well, okay. You're talking angles. I'm talking three things. I'm talking about Country Kid Rock was
Oh
next.
God. Oh.
But obviously you've already tried to wipe that completely from your memory banks. And I don't blame you for doing so. Completely
Yeah.
unnecessary to have Hardy perform on a show that was already almost 4 hours in.
And when we say Hardy, if you're not familiar, didn't see the show, we're not
Oh yeah.
talking Matt or Jeff. The
No.
Hardy Boys did not return to WWE. Although I would have preferred a Jeff Hardy what's his band, Paroxygen or whatever. I would have preferred to see a Jeff Hardy musical performance than whatever we got. I
And
don't know
if you're
what that
familiar
was.
with Jeff Hardy's music, you know what Doug is saying is not necessarily a compliment.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it was awful, and maybe the main event starts at 11:45, so there was no need to stretch that to as late as it was already going by having that performance. But
but again, that was our other, I guess, our other corporate tie-in of the night since he was dead. I I got no words for that. Let's talk about the main
let's
event.
talk about the main event. Roman Reigns is still your Universal Champ against Kevin Owens.
Yep.
There was a big fight feel, and it was a bigger fight feel than it seemed like it was going to be prior
Uh-huh.
to everyone finding out that it was going to be the end. Because when we knew it was going to be the main event, we had a lot of additional intrigue suddenly added to a match that everyone knew weeks ago what the outcome was
Mm-hmm.
going to be. There was an early match rock bottom by Roman, which I'm sure was intentional. There was a beautiful frog splashes and then the senton from KO. KO just does not look like someone who should fly with such grace.
He does not.
Until he slipped on that moonsault. But
yeah. And that was looked so painful because he fell on Reigns' back. Yeah. And then they both just like kept going. Professionals, man, of the highest caliber, elite athletes there.
You get a ref bump, leads to a visual 5 count or so by KO. Then there was this hesitation on Sammy's part to get the chair for his tribal chief. That was really well done.
I love Sammy's response.
You told me
not to do anything.
Yeah, but I'm telling you to get the chair now.
The way these two play off each other is great.
There was some great back and forth. There were actually some believable near falls at the end that made me actually think Kevin had a chance just because of the Sammy wild card factor that was going on. And the fact that maybe Roman had oversold his hand by telling the twins to stay in the back and that Sammy was actually out there working with KO. That's not the way they went with us. Before we get to that post-match, Doug, I just have to say kudos. Either kudos or shame on you. I'm not sure which, Kevin Owens. Those back bumps into the stairs.
Dude.
Yeah. Not one.
Twice. And then there's like the one dude ringside yelling at Roman Reigns, do it again.
Yeah. I'm sitting there, no, don't. You got kids, Kevin. My wife watched the Royal Rumble with me, and she's enjoying the Sammy storyline too. And she had a hard time watching Kevin take that bump. It did not look safe. Definitely concerned for him. And we were not the only ones showing concern for Kevin. So the finish comes. There's these vicious back bumps, like we said, to Kevin's head, and Sammy is the only one at ringside that doesn't look thrilled. Paul, of course, is over the moon. Sammy looks conflicted and actually seems concerned about Kevin.
And Sammy's even telling Kevin, just stay down. Just stay down.
Kevin Owens can't stay down.
He's a prize fighter, Kevin. He is a prize fighter.
The bloodline beat down on KO, and then, of course, this leads to the moment that we've long been wondering who turns on who. Where's the break finally? And that break happened, Doug. KO was tied up, and Sammy made his choice.
That's right. And you can't undersell the bloodline beatdown. After Reigns gets the pin, the beatdown starts. Solo, the twins are out there. Everybody's just beating on Kevin. Paul Heyman has 2 sets of handcuffs for some reason and says he happens to always carry 2.
Paul Heyman would.
Of course he would. He's Paul Heyman. But, it comes down to the point where, Reigns has got the chair and is going in for the kill. And who steps in?
You don't need to do this. You don't need to do this.
This is beneath you. You won. It's over.
And then perfect playing. It wasn't, like perfect. Roman, like, okay, I don't need to do this. You need to do
it. Yes.
I mean, everyone played their role so well that it did not matter that The Rock did or did not show up. They did give us a little intrigue, though. I got to say, I did not see Jay walking out, but that added an extra wrinkle of, I wonder where they go with that now, just to keep a little strand going of what happens next with this. But I think it's obvious that now that Cody is marked for WrestleMania, that Sammy's big glowing moment with Roman Reigns is going to be happening here in a couple of weeks. As you mentioned, Doug, somebody's hometown.
Exactly. There's a lot of Canadians that are going to have home field advantage at the next Premium Live event.
So there, folks, if you didn't see Royal Rumble, you got you got so many storylines advanced on the road to WrestleMania. Worth your time. Skip the matches that aren't the main event or the Rumble matches, and that'll save you about 40 minutes or so of if that, and cut out the musical performance. But Doug, we're on the road. Are you ready to go on to your big finish?
I am ready. Let's do big finish. Big finish.
All right. Performance of the week. I'm just going to. Well, no, we start with botch. I usually start with botch. We'll get the bad out of the way first. So, Undertaker's bike on Raw 30. I mean, Undertaker's always slow on entering when he's the dead man, but the American Badass is usually pretty quick. And I'm thinking, is this a bit where you play the Undertaker's music and then he doesn't come out? And then he slowly comes out like he's having problems with his bike. And I thought, that's odd. And then at the end of the match, same thing. He can't get it started to get back up the ramp.
So I legit thought that, first it starts with the gong and then they go into American Badass. And I'm thinking, are we getting like the phases of Undertaker here, like through 30 years of Raw? Nope, he just took him in to get the mic out down the ramp.
Yeah, he just slowly push it. I'm like, it doesn't make Grandpa look good when he can't get his bike out on the ramp. But
no.
Small botch on my part, but that's it for me. How about you?
Man, let me tell you, I'm going to just condense all mine and stay with the Rumble theme because I'm the theme guy. I love stables. I love themes.
All right, you go for it, and I'll end it then.
But this pitch black ridiculousness, man, this was just terrible. I think it's only saving grace, like you said, is nobody got eaten by a zombie this time. In like a corporate tie-in gimmick. Nobody was eaten by a zombie. Whatever Uncle Howdy is, skyrocketed from a height of 20 feet to near LA Knight. So I'm sure LA Knight's okay. But
yeah.
I mean, overall, that was just a very disappointing and botched thing because, again, I think Bray Wyatt is a very talented and creative mind. I don't know what they're doing with him. I don't know if they know what to do with him.
Doug, go ahead. Performer of the week. Tie them all together.
Sammy, man, come on. How can and not just for Rumble, but just throughout the week. Sammy.
And your match?
My match, I'm going to call the Women's Royal Rumble. I loved that match between the two of them. I really, really loved that match. That head scissors finish, like with Rhea skinning a cat to take Liv down. And it was just such a fun match. I love the flippy floppy high flyers and everything. And I would give a special shout out to that Logan Paul for that, that move that he did with Ricochet. But comedically, now with it in your mind, just go back and watch it and see it looks like two lovers just shooting at each other in an embrace that completely botches.
Maybe I don't want to see it in slow motion. I don't want that.
But yeah, that's it for me, man.
My performance of the week, I'm right there with you, but I'm expanding it to not just Sammy. I'm just expanding it to everyone involved in this storytelling. Sammy's at the center because no one really in WWE expected it would last this long, or Sammy would get this over doing it. But man, has it been fun to watch? Yeah. Yes. It was short term, and they just kept riding the hot hand. It is the hottest storyline in wrestling for some time now, and I'm almost sad to see that it's coming to an end. But the slow burn, the epic storytelling finally came to this payoff of Sammy and Roman at odds, and every person involved, from Sammy and Roman to KO's part in it, to Paul at ringside, to Jay. To the crowd. I mean, you could not have had all these months of planning led to that moment, and the crowd reacted exactly as you hoped that they would. Yeah. From the Sammy chants to the things we can't repeat here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show.
Yes, he finally got legit. It's not go away heat. It's not that, okay, this guy's great as a heel heat. It was legit heel heat.
The latest act in this story, this journey, this hero's journey story was played to perfection. The crowd told you all you needed to know by the fact they hit all their marks, and every player on that stage hit all their marks. By far the highlight of the Royal Rumble had nothing to do with actual wrestling matches last night. It was that moment, and it was perfect.
Yes, it really was. Was.
I will say, even though the Sammy half turn, maybe as it was inevitable, they still managed to throw intrigue into it. The idea of Jay walking off, we forget early in Roman's reign here, Jay was the one who did not like the way he actually feuded with his cousin before he came
This is it, because Jay, since day one, has been questioning the tribal chief. it was Jay. If you go back, because I didn't realize this, I thought it was Jimmy talking to Jay at the point where he's like, he's not supposed to be your brother. I'm your brother. That was Jay talking to Sammy about KO. What are you doing? I'm your brother. He's not your brother. So, and I didn't realize that in the moment. I was just totally enveloped in it. But
so there is still an X factor out there of some
absolutely,
other moves they can play. And I'm, as with everything with this, I'm intrigued to see what they do.
and Sammy can also, we can also continue with the Sammy Uso chant if Jay is in lockstep with Sammy.
And who doesn't love a good Philanucci with that Sammy Uso chant?
Exactly.
All right, Doug, the match of the week. I'm getting away from the Rumble theme here.
All right.
I know we're long, so I'm just going to say it wasn't the highest stakes match of the week. It wasn't the 5-star masterpiece match of the week. It didn't have the implications of any of your Royal Rumble matches this week, but Mark Briscoe versus Jay Lethal.
Yes.
It was a great match. Actually, it was a great match, full of emotion, and it had no reason to be that good. It's unthinkable. How do you go in there 8 days after your brother was tragically killed in an accident and do what he did? And so kudos to both men involved for just emotional contest, and a honorable mention to Tony Khan, who supposedly went to bat and fought Warner Brothers extremely hard. And all the credit in the world to you, sir, for fighting corporate daddy when it's so easy just to lay down to the money men and fight for what was right in this case. And so that's wonderful for them. Wonderful for
especially in a time when corporate daddy is looking at cutting dollars anywhere they can.
Yeah. Hopefully Mark stays on the brand and stays center focused, because he showed why that he should have been on TV all along. Great match.
Absolutely.
A very emotional contest, my match of the week. Doug, we've ran a little long, but thanks everyone for staying with us. Next week, we have an interesting topic. It is wrestling for sale, with the specter of WWE's impending sale, almost a question of when, not if. We are going to take a look back at the history of professional wrestling and how it's turned out in the past for big acquisitions and sales of wrestling companies, and see what this might foreshadow come a WWE sale, the good and the bad.
Because it worked out so great for ECW and WCW.
We will get into that next week.
Wait a minute.
At 8 o'clock Eastern time here live on Facebook, of course, on demand all the time on our Facebook and YouTube channels. Thanks once again, everyone, for joining us. I'm Kevin.
I'm Doug. Go watch some wrestling, people. There's the camera. Still not used to the setup.